he did say were not certified. We're still waiting for Raila Odinga, the ODM presidential candidate, to make his way to the KICC to present his papers to the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. Currently, he is attending a church service at the All Saints Cathedral, a couple hundred meters away from the KICC. Let me now introduce my guest officially this morning. Of course, Dismas Mokwa is here with us, a political risk analyst, Hesbon Wheeler, governance expert, as well as Professor Oeri Tumbo and Kavemba Mutinda, Jubilee strategist. Good morning, gentlemen. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
So let's get right into it. How do you see the process so far? First of all, let's start with Abdul Badida. I mean, he was a presidential candidate in 2013. I was expecting this to be pretty much straightforward for him.
Well, that is a very strong demonstration of how our leaders behave, that they don't pay attention to detail. You would have expected that he would have gone through the requirements into detail with his lawyers, and he comes with everything well prepared. But now he's got a problem with his papers, and his first statement is casual, almost unacceptable, blaming IEBC for being new. Well, in fact, the fault is on his part. And we shouldn't be surprised that as a nation, we are not making very good progress, because out of the 4 people who are presenting their papers at IEBC, one of them is likely to become a president of the Republic of Kenya. And you see how Dida is behaving. If that's how he's going to behave when he becomes a president, maybe preparing the budget or important state security statements, then we're in a very, very bad space. And again, I would expect that for a presidential candidate, part of the team that escorts you to go to present these papers would be maybe probably your lawyers, your key technical team. And you would have indicated to the commissioners that if they're not certified, my lawyer is right here with his stamp and signature. They do the stamping and he goes ahead. So right now, he's inconveniencing IEBC. They have to maybe create another slot for him in the afternoon.
Hesbon?
Yeah, I think it's the same thing that you expect to be a president of a big country like Kenya, yet the team that is working with you is relatively inefficient in what they are doing. And I think Dida also made the admission, apart from blaming the IEBC, which is unfortunate, he also blamed his team, which is new. And that tells you that he has not made any improvement from 2013 in terms of making his candidature a lot more serious. If you have people that you can still blame for not doing the right thing for you, I think it's a bit unfortunate for your candidature. And to say the least, I think is one candidate who is in the race to give us some sort of comic relief. We get to understand that the presidency is not such a big thing. It's this thing that, is kind of mundane, and we associate the presidency with our little problems in the society, which is a good thing.
Professor, as Hesbon rightly says, many people have said Abdul Badida's candidature is to bring some drama. Is this what he thrives at? Just telling from his first statements there.
Thank you, Ben. From what you see, he's not a serious candidate. My edict, the principle I operate by is anybody you take seriously must take the policy of doing simple things correctly. Now, here is a guy who is not able to prepare a checklist to enable him to pay a visit to the IEBC. Now, if a person has difficulties creating a checklist, just a list of items that must be ticked off by even a primary school graduate is a problem, quite clearly, it suggests very strongly that would be extremely strange that he still has any people to vote for him who expect him to be a president and run Kenya. Secondly, there is an interesting element that one must take at all times. Now, it appears to him that it is important to appear before cameras, appear before the public that he is a presidential candidate. But one thing is for sure, my assessment of this performance, it is only preliminary, but it's not sufficient for anybody to take him seriously.
All right. Kavemba, what is your take on the process so far? Ekuru Aukot cleared, Dida not yet. What do you think?
The process seems okay. Dida, it's his own problems that have made him not get cleared. IEBC seems organized. I saw them handle him respectfully. They actually all stood up to say hi to him, which I thought was commendable. considering the issues we are raising about clout and all that, they didn't seem to have that kind of bias when they were receiving him, because they all stood up and said hi to him on there.
Purposes, I'm not the one who's raising clout issues.
Yeah, it's the panel, and it's the panel. It's the panel that is saying that, but I'm saying the IEBC acted the way they should, because they shouldn't harbor such biases.
Right,
they are the ref, so they didn't show that, at least in their actions. They treated him like a presidential candidate. And unfortunately, it was a bad start for him, because like Prof is saying here, and you only need very few things, by the way, to be cleared, less than 10. So if you can't get 10 things correct, and then how will you manage this country? This country is not a joke. So that is really a poor start, and it sent the wrong signals.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's talk about where this all began. We had 18 or 19 presidential aspirants. Of course, IEBC did cut that down we had 18 to 8, locking out 10 Kenyans who wanted to be presidents. These include Musungu Amram Inyambuku and Nazlin Umar, Stephen Owoko, Peter Gishira, Michael Orenge, Muthiora Kariara, Jafet Kaluyu, Peter Osotsi, David Munga, and Erastus Masira. These 10 were locked out. The IEBC says they didn't have the requirements. Some of them didn't have the signatures. Others had signatures and didn't have the other documents. What does this say, this much, about this country and our Kenya as a democracy, if we can have 18 presidential aspirants? Of course, now it's down to 10, to 8, more manageable. What does this say about us as a country?
Well, it says several things. That as a democracy, we've matured. That if you think you can actually become president, even if it's during your dreams, you can get a checklist, as professors indicated, and attempt to present your papers. And those are the perils of democracy. And it seems the case that many Kenyans are abusing the process. Mm-hmm. Out of all those 18 candidates, it's actually only 2 who believe that they can end up becoming presidents of the Republic of Kenya. Others are coming maybe because they're seeking publicity, they want to be interviewed by the media. Maybe they're looking for an opportunity to be, for lack of a better word, to be compromised and get a job somewhere or get a placement somewhere. Or maybe they want to remind us of the kind of candidates we need. Because when you look at some of those candidates, like Dr. Ikora Okot, it will be interesting to watch him, how he's going to engage the serious presidential candidates in a debate. And one says this with a lot of respect to Dida, because he keeps on complaining that we refer to a 2-horse race. But that's the case. He doesn't have the political capital. He doesn't have the infrastructure to prepare his candidature. So I think people like Aukot are going to be very instrumental in the presidential debate, because he's one of the few candidates who will actually look at President Kenyatta in the eye and Raila Odinga and tell them what they have not been able to do for the nation. And that would be very good. It will be refreshing. Well, we know for a fact that he'll be lucky to even get 50,000 votes. Even where he comes from in Turkana, people will look at him as a clown or as a joke, and they'll not want to associate with him. Unfortunately, that's where we are as a nation. Because if we were very keen on meritocracy, that we are looking for people who understand the problems affecting the nation and voting for them, then people like Aukot would stand a big chance. People like Professor Kiapi would stand a good chance. But as a nation, I think we've been socialized to, mediocrity, and that's what we like engaging in. We are not able to give the people who are supposed to be given leadership position, give them the opportunity to lead.
And just for the sake of our viewers, the IEBC will be receiving nomination papers from 4 presidential aspirants today. That is, Kurwa Okot has already been cleared. Mohamed Abdul Badida, who still has to take his certified documents to the IEBC. Raila Amolo Odinga, the ODM presidential candidate aspirant, Justus Juma of Justice and Freedom Party. The rest, the other 4, will be presenting their papers to the IEBC tomorrow, including President Uhuru Kenyatta, Kwajirongo Shakalaga, United Democratic Party. Why did he change his name? He said us wrong. What happened?
A number of people, like even in Uganda, during the elections, when you look at the name Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, during the elections, he will rearrange his name so that it's faster in the ballot. So that could be one of the things that Jirongo is looking at. Or even the fact that he has rearranged his names and dropped the Western name it has made him a topic of conversation. Now, those are the perils of democracy we are talking about,
Right.
that we want to go for a serious presidential election, and instead of giving this opportunity to the two serious candidates, now we are going to entertain every Tom and Dick and Harry into the race. And,
Right.
like, for instance, now when you go for the presidential debate, a number of Kenyans will be forced to listen to another 6 candidates just purely for comic value or for entertainment value. Because the people who are going to watch this debate will be waiting to see what President Kenyatta says
All right.
and
What
Raila
Raila
Odinga
says.
and not the rest.
So the other two, the only independent candidates, presidential candidates, Professor Michael Wainaina Mwaura and Joseph Nyaga. Hesbon,
Yes.
let me ask you a question about something that is our big topic on our new flagship election show, Kivumbi 2017 tomorrow, and that is, what do Kenyans, to follow up on what Dismas mentioned there, what do Kenyans vote for in your analysis?
I think I would agree with Dismas to a large extent that our democracy has grown, but I wouldn't say it has matured. Because if you look at the reason why we vote for the people we vote for in Kenya today, one, we are ethnic. I mean, the first basis on which I elect somebody as a Kenyan is because he belongs. He may not be in my tribe, but he belongs to the alignment that my tribe associates with. So if it is NASA, it is because my tribe is in NASA. If it is Jubilee, it is because my tribe is in Jubilee, or the presidential candidate is from my tribe. But I think this is something that we are getting to understand as the aspect of the democracy that is taking us backwards. And to a slight extent, I would say that Kenyans are beginning to move to the next level of voting for leaders based on what they stand for, the integrity of their character, the policies that they advance. And I must say that it is the leadership that now is taking us back, because when you listen to the political leadership, you get the realization that, to a large extent, they're not talking about issues. They're trying to whip people into some alignment, that you have to vote for this number of pieces. You have to vote for people in our political party. On Friday, I was listening to Resta Passaris talking to millennials, and he was very clear that, unfortunately, in our political dispensation, we vote along tribal lines. And when we don't have a candidate, or we don't know the MCA candidates, the MPs who are contesting, we pick the ballot and we vote for somebody who belongs to the political party that we support. And she was taking another step by reminding them that this is unfortunate. So the best thing you need to do, if you don't know the people contesting for a position that you're voting for, vote a woman. Now, that is taking us to another dimension. And I think I liked what she was entreating, because she was saying that the reason why probably voting a woman that you don't know is better is because a woman has maternal instinct. But coming back to your question, I think to a large extent it's ethnic, followed by who is aligned to our ethnic groups. And then remotely, we are voting on political leaders based on failures. That what did they do and what did they promise to do? So if they didn't do, we look at what they didn't do.
Prof, is there a time, first of all, do you agree that it is Kenyans vote along tribal lines? Is that the only thing Kenyans vote for? And will Kenyans get to a time where they will be voting for issues or issue-based politicians?
Ben, let me take it back a little bit. Dismas said that our democracy has grown. I don't know how one would measure it, just by the growth by more people joining the presidential race. What, in my assessment, has happened is that considering that, for example, Uhuru Kenyatta was an ordinary person, other than being Kenyatta's son, who was built into a serious political contender. He was an ordinary person. There is a realization that everybody is ordinary and can be built into something novel that can be admired. What has happened is that the mystery around the presidency has been somewhat unmasked, such that even every ordinary person thinks, Ata Mimi, if some miracle was to take place, I can actually become a serious presidential candidate and become a president. Two, there is an interesting development that is taking place. Now, while the tribe is number one determinant of political alliance, There is number two, availability of resources to corrupt and to entertain. You know, without money to do all these things, there is very little really. So the first thing, people vote because of the tribe. Secondly, because of kitu kidogo. Three.
There's a very interesting phenomenon about Kenyans. When you hear people, layman Kenyan talking, they say, huyu jamaa hana kitu, mbona tumpigie kura? What is that about?
It's because politics in Kenya is a business. It's a business where you go in to exploit the systems and enrich oneself. If you do not do it, the common slogan is umelalia maskio. Secondly, it is important to realize that when you convert a whole public service system into a business enterprise, then clearly you create merchants. So that the ordinary voter says, even if I don't like that guy, even if he's not from my tribe, but amenipa kitu, nimekula chake. So the essence of our stage at the moment is governed, is embedded in the tribe and lubricated by corruption. And corruption simply because the political landscape is a business enterprise.
All right. Kavemba, what do you think about this?
Yeah, first, I really want to agree with the sentiments of fellow panelists about how we vote. Primarily, it's about politics of identity. Where are my people? But that is at the national level. It's good for me to put that clearly, because it is at the national level where we consider tribe as the basic consideration for who we will vote for. But, this is the era of devolution. And the devolution has brought other aspects that are, in my opinion, very good for voter awareness. Because, like, for instance, if you go to Kisumu, there is no issue of ethnicity there when they are deciding who is going to be their governor. And you have to appreciate that the governor is a substantive position that is controlling resources. So this devolution has brought an aspect of some level of improved awareness in relation to what it is exactly that we need to expect from leaders. Now, if you go, for instance, to Cumberland, there are Kambas who want to be governors there. There are some who've been incumbents for the last 5 years. So ethnicity is not an issue there. So there are things that people are looking at. They're saying, like, why are other counties having better hospitals than ours? I think this person in that extent has failed. Why have we not seen any improvement in matters of water? And that is a bit trying to start converting our politics from strictly identity-based politics to also issue-based, especially at the levels where we are homogeneous in terms of community, in terms of ethnicity.
Right.
So that's the beauty of this devolution. And I think with time, this thing will also, because, like, for instance, if in Cumberland, let me use that because I'm a Kamba, we decide that we are not going to elect any governor who's not going to address our water issues, who's not going to address our health issues, who's not going to address, and it becomes a culture such that everybody who's vying at that level knows that these are actually issues that are going to make or break my political career. It is just going to be a matter of time that even the leaders will adapt that. And if they do at the local level, it will also be a matter of time they also adapt the same at the national level, so that when they sit at the national table, their concerns is what do we get for our people that they are demanding. Unfortunately, as at now, it's the commercial bit, like Prof is correctly putting it. We've commercialized our politics such that even those who we elect at the grassroots to come and represent us, instead of bargaining in terms of what exactly their people need, it is about their stakes, their interests.
Personal interests.
Once they get into public office,
yes,
they then pursue private gain.
Right.
That is because they also they invested in people. It's high time that people start investing in their leaders.
ROI.
Yes, so that they can demand from them what it is that they merit.
All right.
Yeah.
Allow me to bring in 3 points in response to what Professor has raised. That our democracy is growing. Maybe there's no scientific parameter of measuring the same, but at the time we started seeing multiple presidential candidates, it's after the repeal of Section 2A of the old Constitution. Because from 1963 till the repeal of Section 2A, there was only one presidential candidate. If you are the president of Kanu, then it was your turn. But it's from repeal of Section 2A that you had many more candidates coming on board. And that would indicate that the people now have got the energy, they've got the guts to say that I can actually become president. Now, when you talk about issues, maybe it's important to bring in a contradiction from Ghana. And I've spent a bit of time in Ghana, that if you're campaigning for any seat in Ghana and you're seen driving with a top-of-the-range vehicle, running around in a top-of-the-range vehicle, or even using an helicopter, then people are not going to vote for you because they'll say these are very good signs of you becoming a thief. The affluence you see in
And
the
that's
Kenyan
a culture thing, isn't it?
It's a culture thing, yeah. If you're going to be very affluent in your campaign, then the voters may want to establish where are you getting these resources from? Which cartel do you belong to? And if you win and you take office, how are you going to repay all this? Maybe that's something that we are supposed to be looking at as a nation, Kenya, moving forward. Because as Kavemba has indicated, all our politicians, right from the MCA level, they look at power as a factor of production. It's only in Kenya where an MCA, say 4 years ago, was unable to afford a cup of tea at a decent hotel, say in my village in Kisii. 4 years later, you can actually afford to go and buy now the entire building. You can go buy the entire hotel. So you wonder, what factors of production has this gentleman been able to put together so as he's not able to buy the entire building if 4 years ago he was not able to buy a cup of tea? And also when you look at the voting pattern from the time now we got a pure democracy in Kenya,
right,
it's been around protest. So people vote sometimes in as much as it's anchored on ethnicity, but there's an element of protest. And that's why people are beginning to say that this election is going to be anchored on protest, that people may be protesting about the cost of living, there could be a protest around corruption, and it's now a tribal leader who is able to harness that emotion, who easily carries the day.
All right.
I think, Ben, maybe
Yes,
if I respond to this too. One, I think our democracy has grown. But when you talk about maturity, I think we are still very far. And if we want to measure the level of maturity in democracy, I think we're going to do that in this election by looking at how many votes,
Right.
Professor Ekuro Court is going to get. I mean, the extent to which is going to be a little bit successful in terms of amassing votes will actually give us an indicator of how we've grown to the point of looking at candidates based on issue. But now, coming back to the growth of democracy, you realize that to a large extent, our democracy has not grown. Look at the Young Turks in the early 1990s, and ask yourself, where are these Young Turks? They are all scattered. You know, at some point, Honorable Raila Odinga, Honorable Kraitu Murungi, Gitobwi Manyara, George Nyanja, Paul Mwite, the guys the late Michael Omalo Kijana, they were speaking the same voice, the voice of reclaiming this country from one-party dictatorship. Now, to the extent that these guys retreated to their tribal cocoons, and you can actually trace where they've gone. They are no longer together. Where are they? They've gone back to tribal outfits that speak the language of their people. And that tells you that you're not growing.
All right.
We are not. But then, coming back to what Kavemba said about at the national level, we are relatively ethnic, and then at the county level, we are becoming a lot more conscious of who we are voting because we are homogeneous. Probably that's to a large extent, that is true if you look at cosmopolitan counties. But if you go to a county like Kisumu, for instance, ethnicity is now, taking a different coloration.
It is going to the village.
To the village. But now, all of us are Luos. Now we need to ask ourselves, all Luos in Kisumu, do they belong to the same, sub-tribe? They don't. So there is Jokano, there is Jonyakat, there is Joseme. And now it becomes, again, a contest of ethnic groupings, which to a large extent tells us that our democracy is still like an ethnocracy, where ethnic groupings are competing. But it doesn't mean that it's all doom. I think you're making the right
So
sense.
they're devolved. All right. Great thoughts there on that. Those are live pictures from the All Saints Cathedral here in Nairobi. Those are, of course, the National Super Alliance Pentagon members. Raila Odinga, the presidential candidate, the deputy president aspirant, Kalonzo Musyoka, Moses Wetangula, Musalia Mudavadi, and Isaac Ruto there during a church service they are attending, after which they will be making their way to the IEBC, to the KICC, where the IEBC is taking the presidential nomination papers from the aspirants. We shall be taking their live as soon as they are on the move. Let's focus our attention, gentlemen, on the IEBC for a moment. There has been some kind of tension, if you may, at the IEBC, and it's just 71 days to the elections. And for the latest we do know is that they have suspended James Mohati, who was the ICT director, according to statement by the public affairs manager Andrew Limo is that the IEBC has sent the director of ICT Muhati on a 30-day compulsory leave following a report by the Audit, Risk and Compliance Department that he failed to cooperate in the provision of information requested from the department. This happening just barely 2 months to the election this month. Is this some kind of infighting? What does it say about preparedness of the IEBC?
Obviously, it points to commercial infights at IEBC, that there are some Kenyans who are not very happy or are not interested in us having a free, fair and credible election, but they're interested in making money. Now, when you look at the reason as to why Mr. Muhati was requested to take a break, is because he refused to cooperate with other directors. And the other director in charge of audit and risk wanted to know whether or not all the certificates from, the ICT certificates, whether they're in a good shape. Because, there's been allegations that a number of their certificate software, some of them could be pirated and stuff like that, they may not necessarily guarantee a free and fair election, and he refused to comply. So one wonders, if you're a director and your colleague director requests for information in compliance, not just with the IBC requirements, but with the constitutional requirements, why would you want to slide into a forest and fail to give that necessary information? It's very basic that there was something he was hiding. And if you look at the last election, part of the reason why there was a collapse is there were two systems which were not compatible, because the director then in charge of ICT failed to ensure that the two technologies were compatible. So now you've got a commission that wants to ensure everything is working, and one of the directors is taking a back foot. He doesn't want to cooperate. So in my view, the commission has rather have done the right thing. And if there's any other manager or director who is singing from the same hymn book, he must be sent home. And we must be aware as a nation that there's nobody who is indispensable in Kenya. Even if you occupy the most sensitive position, you must be alive to the fact that at some stage you live and drop dead, and the system has to go on. So the fact that he's been fired, he was requested to take a walk, is a statement of confidence in the systems that IBC has created.
Right.
That the commissioners are happy that even if we fire this guy, the elections will still go on. Because I understand during the plenary arguments, one of the senior managers said, oh, wait a minute, this guy, we shouldn't fire him because the elections are too close. That if we fire him, then we may not be having an election. But what we've been talking about for hours on end is that IBC needs to have those very solid systems. That it matters not who is seated there. That, all of us are human beings. Somebody would collapse even on the eve of the election. And if somebody collapses, it doesn't mean that we are not going to have an election. We should have those very solid systems. But now, outside the fact that this gentleman has been suspended, I hope it's going to be followed by an investigation and to establish whether or not there is any criminal liability on his part.
Kavemba, what does this, I'll come to you, Prof, after this. What does this do to the relationship between the Commission and the Secretariat?
I'm not very sure whether it's really about that, because at the end of the day, there has to be control. There is a clear hierarchy, and people have to work in tandem as a team. And first, I'm happy because, you see, one of the biggest problems we have in this country is lack of accountability. So when an action to hold someone accountable is taken, I feel good, because if you ask me, part of the problems we have in this country have so much to do with business as usual, even when people are messing up. So it's good that the IBC has come out to stamp its authority and to ensure that they are in charge. Because you can imagine a situation where you're in charge yet you're helpless, that some of the people who are working under you are not doing as you are commanding or as everybody else has agreed that we should move. I think it's a good move, only that I am short of the details, and I know they'll unfold. I believe that's why there is a 30-day suspension, so that investigations and a full report into exactly what was going on can be brought out. But as far as accountability is concerned, I'm happy, and I'm actually urging the IEBC to ensure that any of their staff who seems to be doing anything that is going to affect their credibility, they should come down hard on them and hold them accountable, because so much is at stake. And we know the last time we had issues of credibility, what happened to this country. I don't think they want to go into, they are relatively young people, so I don't think they would want to go into our history books as people who took us back that path when we were all agreed that we need to put in place systems that are above board and are acceptable even to the losers. Because most importantly with an election is to ensure that even a loser has got no excuse, because all the participants, including the loser supporters, are telling them that I think we lost. Yes, I think we lost.
Prof, as you respond to that, do you think this is a dent or a boost to the credibility of IEBC?
I consider that this is a great hit by IEBC. In fact, my suspicion is that this is the tip of the iceberg. And I say that because that is just one component of systems evaluation that has been found to be deficient and the cause identified. Okay. The reason I'm saying this is because, take for example, the issue of voter verification of that they are properly registered.
Right. Yeah.
Now, suppose, for example, 70% of the people who are registered don't go to verify their details by assuming they are correct, and then they turn up on the day of voting and they are not correct. Now, the reason I'm raising this issue is because there has been information floating around that in some parts of the country, people are not bothering to go and verify their personal details because they trust IEBC. Now, if you have one group saying, we trust IEBC, I thought the operating principle should be, I trust, but I must verify. That is the principle of how you want to get accountability. I trust what you are saying, but can I take trouble to confirm that it is correct? Now, if, for example, people have not verified and they are not on the register, what are the consequences? For example, if you go backwards, these people who have not gone to confirm their particulars, all right, if they don't do it, what will IEBC do about it? My thinking is that now that IEBC has started cracking the whip, I think they need to look at other critical departments in the same way they have treated this one, so that they go the whole hog in cleaning the system, so that this one doesn't complain that it's been a victimization, that there is a group that is after my back, and I'm being crucified for wrong or illegal or illegitimate things that are being carried on. Finally, I want to say this. Now, we are spending too much time, or the public is spending too much time, or the players rather, are blaming the referee. Now, instead of checking their systems, checking their own preparedness, and making sure that they do proper messaging, which does not mislead their followers, so that they do the right thing. I think we are taking too much trouble to vilify IEBC, sometimes even for things that are a consequence of players' misdemeanor. For example, this thing from Dida. I mean, now he was blaming IEBC. Somebody else will blame IEBC, but quite clearly, it is a stakeholder who put down the skids that have caused these problems. So the bottom line is, I would like IEBC to go the whole hog, so that you sanitize or you clean up the system completely, so that nobody has an excuse anywhere throughout the process.
To raise any queries. Yeah. Let's get back, Hesbon, to the nitty-gritty of that. Now, sources have indicated that the system that was in question for Muhati's suspension was the Oracle license for the 2012 biometric voter registration kits, which, according to IEBC, expired in 2014. That is a year before Mr. Muhati was hired to the commission. How important, I mean, we all know the issues that were in 2013. How important is the ICT factor for the IEBC?
I think the ICT factor is very important because everything has gone digital, and information and communication technology actually is the backbone of the bulk of what IEBC will be doing in terms of transmitting the results, in terms of relaying results from different parts of the country. But I think of most significance in this whole thing is the fact that IEBC is coming out strongly as an organization that is doing the right thing at the right time. And unfortunately, I think the bulk of what we've been experiencing in this country is situations where people talk about things about national institutions, the national government, personalities in the government, with very little truth in whatever they are discussing. That we talk about NYS, we don't know the truth. We talk about other scandals, we don't know the truth. But I think it's clear from what IEBC has done that these are repercussions of events that they've given us. And they've told us that the reason why this director has been suspended for 1 month is 1, 2, 3. So it is a bit clear. There is no speculation. And I think this is one news story that came to the mainstream media without taking any traction in the social media, which is a bit commendable. And I would want to imagine that IBC is proactive in the way they are handling things. And just like Prof is saying, if they keep giving us information on why they are doing certain things, they are going to win our perception in terms of how credible they are in whatever they are doing. Because ultimately, I don't think the election is about technology. The election is about the credibility of the process. So much so that even if technology fails, we will still believe that whatever they are doing is the right thing.
All right.
But Ben, there may be two questions that we may need to ask, and IBC needs to give us answers. Number one, why would a director of ICT want to blackmail the entire organization?
Right.
Why wouldn't he want to come open and give the status of all those licenses? Why would he have this information? And if the director for ICT has got open contempt for his bosses, their commissioners, then who is he responding to? Is there a powerful cartel that is representing outside? Maybe the cartel had told him that, wait a minute, you are never ever going to be fired. Go do your monkey business, and we'll have your back covered. Those are the salient and pertinent questions which must be answered. Is this gentleman who's been suspended, is he part of a certain cartel that wanted to compromise the entire system? And when you're talking about ICT and this election, it's not just important, it's indispensable, because without an efficient ICT system, then we have no election. And I'd like to take a divergent view from Professor Oiri.
Right.
That for IBC, anybody who has question marks about IBC, they must raise those questions today so that they are answered, whether it's flimsy, whether it's important, because we know 2007, the country went into flames because of IBC. So anybody who is suspecting mischief from the referee, you must go to the top of Mount Kenya, complain, make a lot of noise, and it's up to the commissioners to convince the entire nation that everything is working in order. Even the issues raised by Abduba, it's up to IBC to tell us that for them, they've done everything in order. It's Abduba who failed to ensure that his papers have been certified. Anybody who's got an issue with IBC, please go to the top of Mount Kenya and make noise, because we don't want, after August 7th, people to say that I could smell a rat, but I did not make noise when the country is up in flames.
Right. These are live pictures from the All Saints Cathedral in the Nairobi Central Business District, where, as you can see, I think the church service there has just ended, and the principals in the National Super Alliance are now making their way out of the All Saints Cathedral. Remember, they will be making their next stop at the KICC, just a couple hundred meters from where they are, where the presidential aspirant for the ODM party, of course, who is the NASA presidential flag bearer, Raila Odinga, and his running mate aspirant, Kalonzo Musyoka, will be seeking to present their nomination papers to the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. As we have seen, that process is not taking a lot of time, so we shall be taking to KICC a very short time, a very few moments from now to see what will be happening. Remember some of the requirements that the presidential aspirants must have. Very interesting because of those details. You need to have the details that need to be checked. Remember, you need to have a degree certificate. That is part of the certified education certificate, including a degree certificate. You need a copy of a campaign schedule. Give it to the IEBC. That is very important. And if you don't have any of these, you are not to be cleared by the IEBC. There you go, Raila Odinga being ushered into the vehicle there. Of course, that trip is going to take a very short time from the All Saints Cathedral to the KICC, where we shall be seeing them presenting their papers to the IEBC to become a presidential candidate. Prof.
Yeah, Ben, there is an important extension I wanted to make to a few comments that have been made here. One of them is this, that when there is a cup final to play, all right, teams do not spend their time, all right, discussing whether the referee knows how to referee or not. They spend the time planning ground holding strategy, ball control, marking schemes, and things like that. Now, although raising issues with the IEBC is extremely important, I think we are notorious as a country for dwelling on trivialities, things that have relatively minor impact. In my view, what IEBC has done about dealing with that director, they should go from department to department, from sub-process to process, everything, so that you match, all right, the plans with the process, so that the equipment is itself ensured that it will work. Because one of the things that has caused us pain again and again is the national pastime that there are people who think that unless there is an irregularity, there is a crookedness to even a normal, honest process, then there is something wrong with it. For example, you will find that a child has passed to go to university, has got a top grade, for example, an A, but the parent is still looking for somebody to bribe to be able to help him to admit that child. Now, this is part of our cultural handicap. And my view is this: once we spend time doing the essential things, the important things, the things that enable you, like now, Dida would be doing something else. If he had done these ones correctly, he would be spending the rest of the day planning other aspects of his campaign. But instead of that, he focused on non-essentials and ended up where he has ended. So the point I'm making really is that it's extremely important to focus on the simple things that allow you to do the bigger things.
Right. As we speak about this, there's an interesting development that has been ongoing, and that is concerning those presidential aspirants who were locked out, the 10 of them. Remember, there was a court order by Justice Odunga on that section 29(1) of the Elections Act, which requires that the persons who nominate a presidential candidate, those requirements, and some of them were nullified by that court order. So yesterday, Nazlin Umar insisted that she was not given the forms by IEBC, that she was unfairly locked out, and that IEBC went against that court order, insisting she will be presenting her papers tomorrow at the same time that Uhuru Kenyatta is supposed to be presenting. What's your take on this, Dismas?
Yeah, as indicated, you've got a number of candidates who do not pay attention to detail. When IEBC has given you documents to go and study, you prepare checklists, you prepare your documents. If you fail to do so, then you cannot start blaming IEBC. Like, for instance, for the case of Dida, he knows, even for a basic job interview, you're supposed to have your certified copies. So if you do not have that, why would you want to start blaming IEBC for that mischief? But again, if the High Court has negated some of those requirements, then it's up to IEBC to accommodate them. I don't think IEBC will have any alternative on that.
All right, and those are live pictures from the CBD, that is Uhuru Highway, if I'm not wrong. It is the motorcade or the procession of Raila Odinga and Kalonzo Musyoka and the Pentagon members. That is on Kenyatta Avenue in the Central Business District, making their way from the All Saints Cathedral, where they were attending a church service, to the KICC, where Raila Odinga will present his ODM nomination papers for the presidency to the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. Those documents will be scrutinized in the next few minutes. We shall be taking you live to that room where the IEBC Commission, led by the chairman Wafula Chebukati, are waiting for Raila Odinga and Kalonzo Musyoka. And of course, they will be flanked by members of the NASA, National Super Alliance, Pentagon, to present the presidential nomination papers there. We shall be taking you to the KICC. But something else that we were talking about, that we want to talk about right now, is we shall be talking about this after Raila Odinga presents his papers, but we can as well begin. That is the political paths. I mean, many of you gentlemen and many other pundits have said it is a two-horse race. Let's take up the political journeys of the two gentlemen. That is the path taken by Raila Odinga. It is all a matter of public knowledge. And the path taken by Uhuru Kenyatta, the main challenger, according to many of us. Kavemba, how do you compare the two, first of all? And how they got into politics, how they've got to where they are right now?
Of course, there is a lot of similarities because both of them are scions of prominent political families. In this, actually, they are sons of the first president and the first vice president. So that is where we should start. And
there's some analysts who said both of them received what they have on a silver platter. Do you agree with that?
It depends on if it's about brand recognition, yes, because they really didn't have to build that. But they followed different paths, and I think they've both put effort into getting where they are. It would be dishonest to say that it was just about them coming from the right families, because I believe, like, for instance, if you look at Raila Odinga, yes, it is true that he is the son of the first vice president, but the first vice president had a very interesting, political history. And I think he took along his son in that. That, from early, he's actually the doyen of opposition politics. The father of Raila is, we can correctly say that he's the father of opposition politics in this country. Since even the days of KANU, at least he could give a dissenting voice even when there was a single party. Mm-hmm. And because of that, he's always been at loggerheads with the status quo. And that is the kind of politics that he probably handed over to his son. That is probably the difference between Honorable Raila Odinga and Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta. Because as you know, Uhuru Kenyatta was brought in very different circumstances. He actually was first appointed into a parastatal. That is, I think, the first time he was brought into Kenya Tourism Board, brought into public limelight. And shortly after, the late Mark Too resigned, stepped down, and he got into parliament. He vied, lost, and eventually he was made a presidential candidate, actually something that broke KANU. But he still maintained, and after 10 years of Kibaki, he became the president. So there is the similarities about them being born from prominent families, but I think you have to give them credit that they've worked their way to get where they are, only that they've followed very different paths to get where they are.
Prof, I have a feeling that you love
yes, I think that my colleague has been extremely generous to Uhuru Kenyatta.
For obvious reasons.
Extremely generous for reasons that are obvious. First and foremost, I would like to say that I agree with him from the perspective of the first president and the
first vice
president, who, in terms of ideological inclination, were different.
Yes.
One was an outright capitalist, and another was an outright socialist, but with capitalist tendencies. Now,
thank you for that.
All right. Now, the first thing, when we talk about Raila, I want the public to remember that when Raila was trying to get into politics, his father did not give him accommodation. He simply told him, the people I want here are Orengo, I want Muite, I want Wamalwa, and people like that. And he built a different cocoon around his political nest, while Raila was left basically scavenging on the periphery, scavenging for relevance. Now, starting from there, Raila has slowly and fairly skillfully constructed his path to where he is now. Now, to cut a long story short, in short, Raila has earned, Uhuru has been given. That's really the distinct difference. One was handed over something and another was given. Yes. But now, there is also something important one should say about Uhuru. Although he was given, quite clearly the givers realized that he has got significant political talent.
Right.
Now, when you see him play, he doesn't play like a person who was given this thing, a useless person who was gifted with a position. He has tried very, very hard to play skillfully, and it has come out. Although, clearly, from the point of view of maneuvering and cajoling and brand building, he didn't need brand building. Raila needed rebranding of his father's brand. Now, what you see are the two players who are more or less at par, but who have arrived through different paths.
And Raila Odinga over the years has built a very solid political base, support base, wouldn't you say?
I think I started following Raila Odinga as a very small boy, and I must say that I admire Raila Odinga as a politician who has fought for himself to the top with very little blemish, I would say. And looking at what we have today, I don't think many people appreciate what Raila has done for this country. I think in the early 1980s, even back to the 1970s and early 1990s, I think Raila fought when there was nothing really, really significant to fight for. And he was essentially fighting for the dispensation that we currently have. A lot of people who make noise on social media don't really get to understand that some of these spaces that we have are because of, the young Turks of the early 1990s who fought. And before these young Turks, you must remember that there was Raila Odinga, who had to fight diligently underground. His family had to go through a lot to get him where he is. And I think the biggest thing that he has done to himself, he has transformed himself to a fighter who was fighting a government that was probably dictatorial to some extent, to a social democrat who now is fighting a cause that people can see an end to it. And I think we lost an opportunity to reward him in 2013. Hopefully, Kenyans will reward him in 2017. But I think having said that, I must also reiterate, hasten to say that I also respect President Uhuru Kenyatta because I've followed his political journey since the time he was appointed the chairman of the tourism board. And you look at what President Uhuru Kenyatta has gone through, and you also understand that in as much as...
All right, that was our live pictures.